Carson's black conservative family suffers horrific home attack. Here's what we know right now. Dr. Ben Carson, the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, has reported that his home in Virginia was vandalized with horrible things. The vandalism contained hateful rhetoric about President Trump and comes at a time when tensions are high between the far-left and far-right political groups. This vandalism surfaced the same week that a Unite the Right event saw violent clashes of liberals who showed up to protest a protest in the same state of Virginia. Carson reported that him and his family were out of town during the time of the vandalism, but that a home of a neighbor was also vandalized. Carson indirectly thanked, while mentioning, that a neighbor had cleaned up the majority of the mess before Carson and family returned home. This type of behavior from anyone, on any side of the political spectrum, is embarrassing and unwelcome. Secretary of Housing and Urban Development Ben Carson revealed Wednesday that his Virginia home was recently vandalized with hateful rhetoric about President Trump. More recently, our home in Virginia along with that of a neighbor was vandalized by people who also wrote hateful rhetoric about President Trump, Carson wrote on his Facebook page. We were out of town, but other kind, embarrassed neighbors cleaned up most of the mess before we returned. Ben Carson spent time on social media posting that his neighbors were kind enough to clean up the mess. He then shifted to talking about the racial divide in America and touched on events in Charlottesville that possibly sparked even more political issues and tensions. Carson posted the anecdote as part of his response to the racial and political strife emanating from the events in Charlottesville last weekend. He also told a story about a time he and his wife purchased a farm in rural Maryland. He said one neighbor put up a Confederate flags. Other neighbors responded by putting up American flags, he said. In both instances, less than kind behavior was met by people taking the high road. We could all learn from these examples, Carson said. Hatred and bigotry unfortunately still exists in our country and we must all continue to fight it, but let's use the right tools. On August 12, Carson and family offered prayers for victims and families affected by the tragic events in Charlottesville. He stated that he was pleased with how President Trump has disavowed any form of white supremacy behavior, but also stated that we should reject forces of political division, radicalism, and terrorists from all points of the world. The country has been plagued by radicalized leftists consistently causing violence, uproar, and attempting to erase history and everything that offends them. Some people, like Takia Thompson, have been arrested and face felony charges for their ludicrous behavior and in consideration for the law. She climbed atop a Confederate statue and placed a rope around the statue, which people below then pulled and took the statue down. She was arrested, confessed, and the leftists consider her a hero. She's not a hero at all, she's just another criminal about to get nailed with charges that could affect her for the rest of her life. If she's convicted of a felony, then she may have a difficult time landing a well-paying job. This means she could have a higher probability of living a life on welfare which will come out of the taxpayers' pockets. Committing a felony in hopes to make a political point is not ever a good idea. Committing the crime on video, in front of numerous witnesses, and then confessing to it suggests that she only wanted her 5 minutes of fame, but that could cost her a lifetime of losing job offers. Some employers won't hire convicted felons, regardless of what the crime may be. Ben Carson posted on Facebook about people working together to achieve greatness. Unfortunately, one look around America will suggest that our far-right and far-left groups have failed to serve America in the best way possible. Most of that blame falls upon the far-left extremists who consistently display their violent acts of intolerance and willingness to shut down free speech. Their actions are a form of free speech, but they don't want anyone else, with an opposing view, to enact their rightful American and constitutional providing the freedom of speech. Carson had this to say. In the past, our country has been able to accomplish great things when we work together. I can think of no societies that became great through division. If Democrats and Republicans continue in an us versus them mode, we all lose. Our real enemies are probably saying to themselves, should we try to destroy them or should we just wait and let them destroy themselves? Our ancestors of every demographic fought hard to provide the possibility of freedom and prosperity for us. We must now look beyond revenge and what makes us feel good and instead think about those coming after us. We need to think about compassion, fiscal responsibility, and the values and principles that characterize greatness. That will truly make America great again. How can anyone accomplish anything while the liberals can't be peaceful for 5 minutes to do anything at all?